Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TBN Asia Virtual Conference 2020. This is a very special conference for us because it's the first time we are doing it in a virtual format. I'm Wayne Cheah, and I lead one of the programs called the Social Enterprise Training Hub with TBN Asia, and I'm your host for today. The Transformational Business Network Asia, or TBN Asia for short, is an ecosystem platform connecting all stakeholders to fight poverty through enterprise. This is an exciting year for us because we had actually quite a few initiatives that we have put in place for the year as part of our new strategy. And we were actually planning to use the conference, the physical conference in August, to either launch or to give everyone an update of what has been done. However, about 6 weeks ago, the TBN Asia team realized that we need to respond really quickly to help social enterprises tide through this challenging COVID-19 season, and we need to do it really fast. So the team did one of the craziest things ever. Firstly, we decided to change the entire strategy. Whatever we had planned for the year, we threw it out. We came out with a new strategy. We converted the entire conference to a virtual format, which is the one that you're attending right now. We pushed it 2.5 months earlier. So from early August, we pushed it all the way to mid-May, or end of May. And make sure you're ready for this. We are channeling all the proceeds of the ticket sales and sponsorships of this virtual conference to a resilience program, which will support social enterprises financially to continue helping the poor. And all this is done in 6 weeks. I have to say, it takes a certain amount of craziness to want to do something like this. So please know that all of you here today are part of an audacious and ambitious goal. Okay, just some admin before we start. Firstly, throughout the whole session, if you have any burning questions, there's actually a Q&A function, I guess, right at the bottom of your screen. So you can click on it and actually ask questions. Now, unfortunately, due to time limitations, we are unable to answer all questions, but don't worry because we also have individual breakout sessions that allows you to interact with the speakers right after this session. Secondly, please note that all sessions are recorded, so that includes interactions or answers to your questions as well. Thirdly, our conference app. Being a virtual conference, we need to provide everyone an avenue to interact in between sessions. And the conference app is that very avenue. You can find the full conference schedule, interact with people, all the attendees here, and learn more about the 70 social enterprises that are exhibiting virtually. Without further ado, allow me now to introduce the chairman of TBN Asia, Melvyn Mak, to deliver his opening address. Melvyn, please.
Hi, greetings. Well, good afternoon from those who are from Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and other parts of ASEAN. Good afternoon also from Australia, but good morning for those who are in Africa and Europe. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and it's an exciting time, as Wayne have said. Let me introduce myself. My name is Melvyn Mak. I'm the current chairman of TBN Asia, and our vision is fighting poverty through enterprise, right? TBN is incorporated as a non-profit in Singapore, but we serve Southeast Asia. And so our ecosystem, we bring together, we call it what we say 5 pillars, okay? We have the conference and events, and you are actually attending one of our conferences, okay? We have run, this is our 5th one in the region that brings together all the stakeholders in the impact ecosystem, banks, impact funds, family offices, NGOs, foundations, individuals, social enterprises, because that's really our heartbeat and the key of what we want to bring together. And then we have Investors Club. We actually form networks with Investors Club in the region, like in Singapore, in Malaysia, Indonesia, in Bangkok, in Manila, Hong Kong, as far as Japan as well. So this Investors Club will be very interested to look at what can I do, who can I help. And then we are running a social enterprise training hub, actually focused in Indonesia at this present time, but opening up to Malaysia and the region as well. So some of the cohorts of the social enterprises will be in for this conference, because we are training revenue generating social enterprise to be investment ready. And then we have an expertise network that is made up of industry experts, mentors, specialists, and life coaches that really come alongside, walking alongside to help the social enterprises be up and about, sustainable and scalable. And then, like what Wayne has mentioned, we have a resilience program. And this resilience program is something that is a concrete action plan from this conference. So this conference is not a talk-only conference. The resilience program is made up of 3 channels. Number 1, matchmaking. In other words, if you as an investor or you as someone interested to help a social enterprise said, I want to connect directly with the social enterprise, and we'll connect you with that. So that's matchmaking. The second part is what we call targeted grants. In other words, the grant money that we have set aside, we would help go direct to help social enterprises. Mostly it's a once-off, we call it productive charity kind of money. But the key is really a resilience fund that is offering loans to social enterprises. And right now we have set up 2 funds, okay? One in Malaysia, all right, and the other one in Indonesia. And really, YCAB, they are our partners for Indonesia, okay? So TBN Asia is committed to 50,000. They are committing to 100,000. So we are starting with a pool of 150,000 Singapore dollars as seed money. So I want to welcome you actually as you listen and join us in this program, whether it is by way of buying tickets or by way of donation. All your money is actually goes straight into this resilience program, from which you are part and parcel of helping lift the social enterprises up. Okay, so that's where we are. And actually, all this is made only possible by the sponsors, okay? And they just come in 6 weeks. We have got sponsors you know, numbers from the banks, the corporates, some of the foundations and so on coming alongside us, okay, to join together. So it's great, right? Now, understand this is just a kick-off session, okay? More will be ahead and we'll tell you more. But actually, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our 3 panelist speakers. Okay, let me open it up in one, you know, introduction for the 3 of them, okay? And then we will start having questions for each one of them, okay? Let me introduce Dr. Kim Tan, a great friend. He's a great friend. In fact, he's my inspiration for myself, Mason Tan, and Lim Kim Pong to actually co-found TBN Asia some 6 years ago. So Dato Kim Tan is the chairman of Springhill Management, is a partner of Springhill Equity Partners, Inco Investments, Novista Ventures, Truestone Impact Investment, and right here in Singapore is the Garden Impact Investment Fund. He's also advisor of the board of Poverty Cure, the John Templeton Foundation, and Johnson & Johnson Citizenship Trust. Kim is a board member of the University of Surrey in the UK. Is also the APEC Life Sciences Innovation Forum Center of Enterprise, Markets and Ethics in Oxford University, and a fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine. I mean, he is called Dato. He is a Malaysian, but right now he's residing in the UK. And you know, the fact that he got Dato really is because he's an inventor, he's a scientist. And he has gone the full circle of startups, bringing the startup into IPO. He exited, and right now he spends all his time in fighting poverty through enterprise. Okay, he has written 2 books. Well, we can't actually have you see the physical books, but one of them is called Fighting Poverty Through Enterprise. The other one is called Case for Social Impact Investing. So I think that's very interesting. All right, so I'm sure you are waiting to hear from him. The next one is Veronica Colondam. Actually, the great friend. We've journeyed every of the TBN conference. She's actually our partner, and right now she's our partner in the resilience program as well. Veronica is a founder and chairman, CEO of YCAB Foundation, as well as YCAB Ventures. Okay, so it's since 1999. So YCAB aims to break generational poverty cycles through financial inclusion and education, especially for school dropouts. YCAB has empowered more than 4 million underprivileged youth in Indonesia through education and more than 200,000 women, okay, through inclusive financing, where education of the children is made as a condition to the loan. So, and she has moved into YCAB Ventures, which is really dealing with microfinance, and right now she's moving into the whole arena of impact investing. So same spirit, same passion. You would love hearing from her. She's got many stories to tell on the ground itself, all right? And then we have Jane Po, okay? And the institute that Jane, who is a director of, that she represents, is Jeffrey Cheah Foundation. It's actually the largest social enterprise, all right, which is very education based. So it owns the whole Sunway Education Group. And, you know, Sunway is one of the biggest conglomerates in Malaysia, okay? It spans from hospitality, hotels, properties, hospitals, medical centers, leisure, and so on. But the Sunway Education Group is really the heart of Dato Sri Jeffrey Cheah. And although there's a lot of temptation of getting him to go and list it, I think from what I heard, it's something that it really touches my heart is that he doesn't want to go that way, because going public benefits just the shareholders, but keeping it at the foundation level benefits all the stakeholders, because education is transformative. So Jane has a role cut out for her. She has involved with, you know, the Sunway Group as a senior general manager in the other sides of it, you know, the corporate side of it for years, as well as she has been involved with communications and so on in the Genting Group. So great. She's very unassuming, actually, for all the expertise and experience she has. She's a great mentor. So we're looking forward to hear from them, all right? So if you're ready, fasten your seatbelts. We're gonna ask questions. First, I want to direct that to Dato Kim Tan, all right? Hi, Kim. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in from all the way from London. How did you get involved with the whole matter of fighting poverty through enterprise? And why do you think social enterprise is the way to go to elevate poverty, and all the more in the midst of COVID-19? I pick up something from one of your books that says, you know, the continent of Africa receives 6 times the amount of money of a Marshall Plan. Okay, aid and donation and grants goes into the continent over the last 50 years. And yet, it has really not helped the continent very much. In fact, the more it goes in, the lesser the productivity goes. And I'd like to hear from you. Maybe you describe that journey yourself. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the question, Melvyn. I got into this really by accident. I became a disillusioned philanthropist because, like everybody else, I was, you know, doing my donations to charities and thinking that that was going to change things on the ground, until I went on my first trip to South Africa some 20 years ago now, and went to the slum just outside Cape Town and just became disillusioned. I saw very good-hearted, well-intentioned people running a very big charity there, helping people to make things by hand, clothes, furniture, shoes, craft, but they were all poor quality. And we all end up buying these products and services out of pity. And I thought, if we buy these things out of pity, we're never, ever going to confer dignity on the people that produce them. And I thought I could write more charity checks, but nothing was going to change. And when you have money, the easiest thing to do is just to give money. What is hardest to do is to give your time. And I was at a stage when I had become financially independent, just a lucky timing, and took the decision to transition out of my mainstream biotech, venture capital, fund management, to start learning how to build businesses amongst the poor, real sustainable businesses amongst the poor. So that was the reason how I got started, and then started a process of transitioning out of mainstream biotech, investing into what is now called social impact investing. When I started 20 years ago, there was no terminology, and I called it social venture capital because that was my background. As to why it's important, well, this COVID-19 pandemic is going to hit the poorest the hardest. Our current estimates in Africa, we will have about 90 to 100 million people who will be hungry. The reason is the main bulk of our economy in Africa are largely in the informal sector. These are people without any kind of government support, no pensions. Whereas in the West, the governments have enough wealth to be able to print money, as it were, and then parachute money into people on furlough. We can't do that in Africa. We just don't have that means. And so the longer this goes on, and my view as a scientist is that this is going to be a long, long process for us. We are just seeing a lot of suffering with people being hungry, and that has a lot of implications at social level, at family level, at the environmental level. Never mind the impact on the economy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, more to come, really. Can I switch the question right now to Veronica? You have told me that that perhaps for Indonesia, the COVID-19 has set back the whole fighting elevation of poverty by 30 years. In fact, it's authenticated by the Guardian of the UK. They mentioned that that's what's going to happen. And so I'd like to hear your journey, because you come across to me as a very passionate woman that helps and want to do that. Every time you speak and share your stories, I cry. So it touches the heart. So maybe you can share the journey of and why you go into social enterprise.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Melvyn. Hi, everyone. Welcome to TBN again. I'm always happy to be here to support Pastor Mel here. So just like, I think the journey, when you talk about the journey, just like Dr. Kim Tan said, there was no word for us. There's no terminology when we started to do what we do. And that's why when I set up the YCAB Foundation, we actually set it up as a foundation, because in Indonesia, there's no such a thing. There's nothing sophisticated like UK, the CFC, or being the CLG in Singapore and all, the company non-profit, right? So there's either a non-profit foundation or for-profit company, nothing in between. So that was just the foundation. But I would probably gonna share our logo, which tells everything. Well, there's a saying, you can tell everything, you know, with flowers, but this is actually, we can tell everything we do with the logo. So YCAB was set up as a foundation. So that's book. And then it went through a house. So we set on the top is the house, below is the book. We believe in the power of education to break the generation poverty. And if we do it with heart. So Yayasan Cinta Anak Bangsa stands for Yayasan is foundation, Cinta is love, and Anak Bangsa is children of nation. For me, it's a personal expression of my faith. God love me, I love the world, and this is how I love the world, by giving those people, you know, with lack of, I think, opportunity, hope, and giving them access to capital, access to education. So the very heart of YCAB is Cinta, is love. It's the expression of my love to the world as commanded by my God. So that's pretty much a spiritual journey for me. Then what is new that I never actually made the connection was around a year ago, almost 2 years ago now, that I did the social enterprise as part of a Schwabies. I'm part of the Schwabies. I was thrown to a journey where I didn't realize that my experience, when I lost my dad, I was 19, I kind of didn't go to school the following year, which is the university. So this generation call it a gap year, but at that point of time, I lived with the shame not going to school, and I felt that dropout, you know, the feeling of dropping out of the school. So the question why now YCAB is very much into education for the school dropout, as you mentioned, Melv, and then the economic empowerment has something to do with my own background, I think my own past, which I didn't realize, I didn't make that connection. And only during this Schwabi, this Harvard class, that we were taken to our own personal journey. So that was new to me too. Imagine 19 years running YCAB, and I only found that reason, that one reason that has the experiential, I guess, element of YCAB. So YCAB, I think fast forward 20 years later, became what people call social enterprise. But then yes, we had the foundation and we set up a few companies. At that point of time, we call it business unit of the Yayasan of the foundation. And our journey has shown you a bit of an impact number here, 3.5 million youth, you know, adding 500,000 women, and that's what 4 million Pastor Melv said. And we went into the global ranking and all of that, and we have mobilized 1.3 trillion IDR, of course, in rupiah. That's around 130 million Singapore dollar for education and economic empowerment. But something that really kind of the journey of foundation into this social enterprise is one thing that I learned. You need to have a business, a model. So for the longest time, we didn't actually have that. So this is a disconnection between the mission and the businesses that we run. But I thought something is missing. But of course, we didn't know. We self-taught. This is a autodidact type of education. So we self-taught ourselves. Then it's just pure instinct that you want to do something good, your mission, somebody has to pay for it, either your own pocket, your own business paying through your profit or something else, right? It's sustainability has been there from the beginning. So then we came up with this is only a few years ago, our premise of change, where now we realize, well, they say money is not everything, but money is very important to create change and to actually create sustainability. So there's a social investment fund that we needed to build, and we've been doing that since 2011 with first investors, Chevron being our first investors in Indonesia. And we created a program that connects, I think, the economic empowerment and the education. So the mission-driven, we call it mission-driven or for benefit microfinance, to just differentiate ourselves from bank, from bank who's running microfinance in Indonesia. So we are into, breaking the poverty cycle. We're tracking how much our client growth in income and profit, and while keeping their kids in school. Because our first premise, we believe in the power of education to break poverty cycle. So we need to keep their kids in school and I think eliminate the factor of they're not going to school. So social investment invested in the mission-driven microfinance, enabling the education of their children. So we want them at the end of the day, not just educated, but become a self-reliant. There's a word in Indonesia called mandiri, which is financially established individual that has, either they get jobs or they create jobs. So we are in the last mile, creating a product that our graduates and of course the public can access, which is a mutual fund. So we wanted the social investment pocket. Of course, we get money from investors, we got money from family. We also want to get money from the public, including our alumni, so the graduates of our program, right? So it's kind of a good story that they can also give back, to the whole social investment, the one that we invested in them. So we are on the way, but that's another conversation, the mutual fund part.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
coming.
just want to close with the 3 premises. So number 1, what makes us different is our microfinance is a means we're using as a tool, the tool to get to arrive at education for all. And what we actually see, our clients triple their income after our intervention and enable to send their kids to school. And then last year, since we look at the number of school dropouts in our communities, the communities that we serve between 2012 and 2019, dropped from 11 to 1%, we thought it's time to bring them up to higher education. So we have the first batch of scholars, university scholars of the children of our clients. But yes, since COVID, we don't have a graduation this year. So that's one. But then the second premise is, of course, the education, bringing what I want to show this is actually the outcome of our education. It's not just educating them, but actually to give them a sense of purpose, that employability, in terms of employability, they are just the same with those who actually graduate from the mainstream organization, mainstream school. And number 3, we want them to actually learn something. So employability, we call it learning, from learning to earning. That's the very important program because we're looking at 86% graduates getting jobs and 18% is actually creating jobs through entrepreneurship, micro-entrepreneurship, which we fund. I'm gonna stop there because I think it's just to give you the whole dynamic of how foundation was focused on education. And then you mentioned now we are actually also working it through ventures, who's running the microfinance, and then we kind of combine the two. But yes, we still have 2 entities, so we kind of structure it vertically. Now the foundation owns ventures, and ventures owns everything else, the portfolio of the social enterprise that we're investing into.
Wow. I can hear the passion already. Yeah, thank you. And right now, can I turn to Jane? All right, Jane, I think it was MAGICS, the Malaysian Center for Social Enterprise, that says that if no help is given to social enterprises within the next few months, probably 97% of them will be gone. I mean, that's really, really frightening. That caused all of us to say, I need to do something. But I know that Jeffrey Cheah Foundation, you have already set in place certain things. So perhaps you can share your journey about that as well, how the foundation itself, using education, using innovation, and so on, brings about the lifting up of the social enterprises in Malaysia.
Well, thank you very much, Melvyn, earlier on for the introduction and a brief introduction about our Jeffrey Cheah Foundation. And hello, everyone around the world who are listening in. And it's very inspiring to hear from Veronica and Dr. Kim about their inspiration and their motivation to get into education to break the cycle of poverty. And yes, that is basically also the vision of our founder and chairman, Jeffrey Cheah. And because he witnessed poverty, if I could share a bit, he witnessed poverty growing up in a small town in upstate Pusing, in upstate Perak, in a small town called Pusing. And he saw the devastating effects. Oh dear, am I lost? Devastating effects. And he wanted to, from an early on, knew that the only way to get out of poverty was through education. So I think we're all on the same page on that. And that's why when TBN Asia came up with this conference, it was a no-brainer that we need to participate in this as well. And because we are in the business of education, business in this sense, although it's not for profit, but we are teaching people and equipping them to face life for the future. So for them to be self-reliant and sustainable and be on their own. So what's interesting is that I need to say this is because our chairman realized that education can never be for profit. Because in the Malaysian context, some of you might not be aware, there are institutions that are under public listed companies. And our chairman had the vision, I would say, and I would admire him for this, that he did not park any of his education entities into a public listed vehicles. Like you rightly said, he actually resisted a lot of offers. Education IPOs were very popular, and the PE ratios were very attractive. It was valued then about 750 million, almost a billion ringgit, but he resisted that, even though funds were badly needed to finance other kinds of businesses. So it drove him to look at what's the best foundations and structures around the world. And he looked at Harvard, and from the early days, he had a vision to be the Harvard of the East. And we then have to operationalize what does Harvard of the East means. And that is quality education. And that it's got to be in a structure that is sustainable and it's for perpetuity, and that we are not answerable to shareholders, but to stakeholders, and our stakeholders are our beneficiaries. So that's where we're coming from. So we have actually a few pillars in the foundation. We are towards education, the next slide. Education, research. Okay, let me explain this. Like the Jeffrey Cheah Foundation is unique is because we have education institutions under its wing. Okay, so we own and govern the Sunway Education Group. It's got universities, Sunway University, we've got colleges, we've got international schools, we've got centers of excellence. And then from the operating surpluses, these are plowed back with scholarships, research grants, community development, and for nation building. And some of you might know that we have the Jeffrey Cheah Center for Sustainable Development here in Sunway University. And we also have the Jeffrey Cheah Institute for Southeast Asia Studies that promotes two-way flow of scholarly academics and intellectual knowledge as well. So coming back to what we are doing now. So we look for entities that resonates with our mission, in that we do not just give money, like Dato Tan says, we don't just give money, but we want to know the money that we give, what are they going to do with it? So hence we as an example, we do have a social enterprise that we support for almost 7 years now. It's called the Generating Opportunities for Learning Disabled. And this is a segment of society that is, on the one hand, is socially, it can be seen as a socially drain, if you will, on certain funding from public funds, but they can be trained. And so we have plowed behind gold, in short. We have sent them our culinary school lecturers to teach them how to bake, and the kindness cookies, as the brand is now known, is very well received, and that is going around right now. And the impact of COVID actually did not impact them that much, because thankfully there was a sponsor that ordered a lot of cookies to send to the frontliners. So the social enterprise was kept busy. But yes, you're right. The impact of the MCO has affected a lot of social enterprises in Malaysia. And Magic has rightly so in their report that 40% will be out of business if something is not done then. So that's where we are right now here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay, I want to dwell a bit deeper into the involvement that that our panelists have. Kim, I'd like to turn to you. I mean, you have like, I don't know, directly involved with 4 or 5 impact investment funds, and then indirectly maybe another 5 or 6 of them. And I know that because of perhaps geography as well, and perhaps the continent that's really needed in terms of sustainability, and you have done a lot of investments there. And I thought that maybe you would share with us the case for impact investing, especially like, for example, if you can give some of the examples that have visited, like Kuzuko, you know, the safari park. It's so interesting and innovative. And then Silolo, where it is in the Cape Town area, where it really empowers the young people on computers. And then Bridge International Academics, and that brings back, you know, the whole idea of education being transformative and how it's impacted the region. Would you share with us and walk through some of these?
Yes, thank you, Melvyn. Well, first of all, Kuzuko, long story how I ended up in that part of South Africa. It's the poorest province in South Africa. And I wanted to build a business there that was going to be sustainable. Long story how we ended up doing this. I know nothing about hospitality. I know nothing about game, you know, and it was just working with really good partners. So with this particular project, it was in a region of 85% unemployment and 30% HIV/AIDS. And as a philanthropist, I felt that I could build a school, I could build a clinic, I could build an orphanage. And I know that all those 3 things are good things to do and we need to do a lot more of. But I knew doing those 3 things was easy for me and in the end wasn't going to change anything. And what was needed was some kind of an enterprise that could catalyze change in that kind of a really poor environment. So the question was this: 1, can you take badly degraded farmland and restore it? It was a question that I asked and nobody could give me an answer. So we went out and bought 40,000 acres of degraded farmland to convert to revert it back to nature. Secondly, can you then bring big game into the park and that they will survive and they will breed? Again, we didn't know. So for the first time in 150 years, we brought back elephants and lions and cheetahs into that part of South Africa, and to prove the case that you can restore the land and that these animals will breed. And then thirdly, can you build a 5-star lodge on it and use ecotourism as a way to fund the whole program? Otherwise, it just becomes a charity. Again, we didn't know. It was in a rural area and it was just uncertain. Well, we built the lodge, and just prior to COVID, we've been profitable for the last few years through the ecotourism that's able to fund a whole bunch of other activities. And then another question we had was, can you hire and train these disadvantaged young people to serve at this kind of a level? Largely European guests. Most of our guests are from Germany and from the UK and from Scandinavian countries. So a really high standard. These are kids who are largely AIDS orphans. Parents died when they were young and have to, you know, grow up very, very quickly, very little education. Can you train them? And the answer is yes, but you have to be very patient. You got to accept that some of them will fail, and you got to be patient in terms of training them. So that was really the Kuzuko story, and what we've learned from that is we've been able to use an enterprise approach to catalyze economic change. We're the largest employers there. It's the largest private investment in that region. So we contribute the most to the local economy every month. So that's what is catalytic. And then you can use that profit, one, to upskill and train disadvantaged young kids who you would normally not get that kind of opportunity. And use the profit also to fund conservation. So we run conservation programs for elephants, for mountain zebras, for rhinos, and now particularly for cheetahs. We've got a big program because all the cheetahs in South Africa are inbred, and we have a target to breed new genetics, and these are some of our new offsprings, and we'll be relocating them into other game parks in South Africa to introduce new genetics into the cheetah population. And beyond that, we probably do this in Central Africa too. And what we learned from that is you cannot do conservation in silos. You cannot just have a charity that says, save the lion, save the orangutan, save the lion, elephants, and so on. Because if the people around your parks are poor and hungry, they will shoot your elephants. They will chop your trees and your forests. And so you have to address the hunger issue if you want to be successful with conservation. So that's one of the things we learned there. Then you mentioned Silulo. And also part of this program, we have I fenced off 1,500 acres to put non-dangerous animals on. We have an educational park there. And guests are given the chance to donate to the Kuzuko Foundation. And we use that money to bus in children for a day to learn about conservation, to then walk with these non-dangerous games. And they can walk with giraffes on foot because there are no lions and no predators there. And it is a really, really fantastic way to educate children about conservation. Silulo was started in about 2008. We funded them around that time by Luvuyo Rani, a really talented ex-teacher who wanted to provide computer training for the township. These are largely kids in the townships without computer literacy. And started out with one outlet. And what they do is they provide a 6-month course so that people will have a Microsoft certificate at the end of that. But it's not free, they have to pay. And what is really interesting is that if it's free, people tend to just turn up for the first week, second week, and then they drop out. But if they pay, they'll come, right? So this is really, really interesting. Well, this model is now expanded, and there are now about 42 outlets now in 2 of the provinces in South Africa, educating over 20,000 of these graduates to become computer literate. Once they're computer literate, they have a better chance of a higher paid job. So because even if you're now a waiter in a restaurant, you need computing skills to handle the touch screens, the credit card payments, and so on. So this is really really important program. It's one of probably the fastest growing computer training centers in the townships in South Africa. And the last one is Bridge International Schools. We invested in this school in about 2009. The basis of this school is how do we provide affordable education to the poorest of the poor, right in the slums. And what we really did was really just to use technology. So all the lesson plans are on these tablets, and the teachers are trained, and we charge parents $5 per child per month. for primary school education. And parents pay us by mobile money, and we pay teachers by mobile money, and we pay suppliers by mobile money. And in fact, what we're doing is cutting out the back office costs. So there's no paperwork involved. The lesson plans are all on tablets. And that's how we bring the cost down to $5 per child per month. Started with one school in 2009. Today we are over 5,000 schools. Wow. We have over 700,000 kids in our schools every day. And the way this has been scaled up is really to do public-private partnerships with governments, taking over some of their failing schools, putting in some capital to renovate their schools, and then bringing in this IT platform of learning and teaching. And because it's all IT-based, digital-based, we can test our children fairly regularly. When we were just 400 schools, we used to test them once every week. So every week we knew what was happening with the children. And the data gets downloaded into an educational team in Boston who do all the analytics, who then improve the curriculum. Questions like, what's the best way to teach English to Swahili children? What's the best way to teach algebra? What's the best way to teach geography? And because we are a big enough cohort, we can have one group teaching in one particular way, and then we monitor and decide which is the fastest, most efficient way. And so it's expanded. We built pretty basic schools, as you can see. Reminds me of my first school in rural Malaysia, because I grew up there too. And my first school in rural Malaysia was just like that. No windows, so that when it rained, you had a bit of a shower. And these kinds of schools that we should still build. It just shows that it's not about the infrastructure, it's about the teaching, it's the content side, and we should be investing in that. One of the reasons why our schools are successful is because we pay our teachers on time. One of the problems with government schools that we have in Africa is that teachers don't get paid on time. And consequently, teachers are absent from class for between 45 to 55% of the time. And even when they come to school, they're demoralized, they're disillusioned, they're tired. And by paying teachers on time electronically, no excuses, no saying, oh, the check is in the post. It just changes the morale, and therefore our teacher absenteeism runs anywhere from 1 to 2%. And we have a big teachers training program. At any one time could be training about 1,000 teachers. So there's always a replacement teacher somewhere. But in terms of output, it's easy to measure. You know, we know how many teachers we have, we know how many children we have. The big challenge now is not actually educating the kids. The big challenge is how do you feed 700,000 kids every day? That's the big challenge. By the end of the year, we have a partnership now with Andhra Pradesh schools. We'll be taking over several thousand schools there. We'll have 1 million kids in our schools every day. How do you feed 1 million kids every day? That's actually the logistical challenge now that we have. So an amazingly talented management team to have built something of this scale. So, you know, unless we, as Veronica and as Jane has said, unless we break this educational roadblock and smash through that for these kids, you know, countries are always will remain poor, family will remain poor, and we need to find more and more creative ways. It was so exciting to hear from Veronica and Jane about what they're doing in terms of children's education. So this is an amazing journey, talented team led by Shannon May and Jay Kimmelman. When we invested, we thought if they can scale to 100 schools, that would be great. But right from day one, they always had a vision, 1 million children every day in the school. So they're on course.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So inspiring. Education is transformative. And I like to hear from Veronica, and then after that, Jane, with regard to what is happening there. So Veronica, let's talk about your move into YCAB Ventures, all right? Because you're right now moving from education, giving them vocational training into microfinance, because you are working both sides of it as well, helping the families. But right now you have moved also from microfinance, which you would continue to be your mainstay, but into impact investing. Tell us this journey, maybe using one or two of the social enterprises that you're working with, and tell the story about that, right?
Well, just like Dr. Kim Tan, it was accidental too. When we were struggling with the Rumah Belajar, the learning center. This is the out of school kind of school that we created for the dropout. We were still facing with the reality that if they can afford school, that was just my simple assumption, then they can come and to our school as a dropout to continue with the, I think, what's the word? The same standard with the mainstream
National.
school. Yeah, with the national curriculum. And, but our tuition is only 10,000 rupiah, which is what, 80 cents or yeah, US dollar. So it's like,
maybe.
it's almost nothing. And for 20 years, we haven't actually increased the price. So, but why do they still drop out? That's the big question. And then we realized that their family cannot afford to give them transport money to give to school. So if the school is free, going to school is never free. Still incur costs, still incur meal money, and they still part of the family economy, I guess. They sell something, they help their parents sell something. So then I realized that we need to help the family. So we came into this microfinance in a way. We used a cooperative structure before because we thought this is members, this is intimate family type of thing. But then with the cooperative structure, it's really difficult to raise capital, and also and then there was some precedent with the really big cooperative running away with like $1 billion money from the people. So cooperative is like, it's not that, has that kind of integrity as a financial institution. So then we came to a point when we need to apply for a OJK under the Financial Authority Institution of Indonesia, like a financial institution, like a proper one. So we did. And then a miracle, I think, happened because we applied. Usually anything with OJK will take months, if not years. So we applied just before Christmas. I remember that is maybe the year 2016. And then we got the license 2 weeks after. So during our Christmas holiday, when we got back to the office, the first week of January, we were surprised that we were granted the license, and we have to make the first report. The reporting with the OJK is actually all online, and we were like stunned. We were waiting for maybe they will call us, this and that. Usually that's the process, but I didn't know why at that point of time we were just granted. Then later I heard 25 actually asked for registration with OJK, only 5 given the license. Then us being one of them, 2 weeks. Only 2 weeks after we actually submit the application. So I think that's a miracle, a Christmas miracle. And then I think that's God's way of saying, hey, you know what? You got to do it properly now that you have the structure. So the social investment part, the one that you mentioned, the equity investment part, is actually part of the structure responsibility. It's mandated by the OJK that 85% of our business, the microfinance, which is pembiayaan, which is under financing, But 15%, minimum of 15% has to be in equity investment to the micro, small, medium enterprise. So that's by law. This is how the government allowing us to get the license so that we can help the SMEs, the micro and SMEs. So because of it, then we have to fulfill the timeline, right? With them, you can't make mistake. You have to report the mandatory. That gives us the real discipline and training. This is what Dr. Kim Tan always say, doing good and doing it well. You have to do good and do it well with the right structure, with the right business model. That's the two things that I think I've learned throughout the years. If you figure these two things out, then you can actually really create impact and sustainable. So that was just, I guess, another way of accidental, but it's a good accident. So we are happy with the structure and we're investing in social enterprise. One of it is actually, interestingly, Plus. It's a platform usaha sosial. It's a platform for social enterprise, which I want to take this opportunity to also share very quickly the hope that I think I see in Indonesia post-COVID. Where Plus is gathering data with British Council. They released the report in December 2018 that there are 342,000 estimated number of social enterprise in Indonesia. You can access this anyway. You can just Google it. The information, the research is available for public. And 342,000, if one social enterprise in Indonesia impact one life, 10 life, there will be millions and tens of millions. And yeah, right? So I think this is hope. There's a question of COVID now. If we can actually empower, maybe not 342, maybe 1,000, maybe we can empower those under Plus, which we have around 828 social enterprise that is registered. Can we show that slide, please? Yeah, so interestingly speaking, they are young social enterprise mostly. With this is the years of establishment. We have all this data, 2 to 5, and then I think 2 to 5 years old. We have all the young social enterprise, and then the profile, the demographic of who they are. Well, more women than male. But then only about the same 40% where social enterprise is actually led by men and women. So the blue one is woman and man. Woman led is the yellow one, and both. So you add the woman and the gray area. Yeah, majority they have woman leader there. So there's a certain gender lens. I don't know whether this is because we're created to help, right? As a helper. So we're helping the world to heal. I mean, God intended us to help. What Eve to help Adam. So this is we're helping to heal the world. So you look at that numbers, quite interesting. And I think the last one is just to show you where they are, the social enterprise and the sector. That is quite interesting. That most of them actually, number one is in the creative economy. And being, you know, in the agriculture also big, education and health is also popular. And where they are, of course, Java would be the most social enterprise concentrated. But interestingly speaking, Bali, if you look at the map, please show the map. It's actually Bali and East Indonesia, 97 organization, and 600 over in Java. Sumatra, I said, also good. So it's quite spread out, and then there are most of them actually under 35. So this is the hope that I was trying to refer to. I know COVID brings darkness at certain degrees. A lot of poor people. Indonesia will set back about 10, 20, or maybe even 30 years just after Suharto. Well, the poverty was in the high 30 million something. So, but with social enterprise, it's very important to empower them. So that's where resilience fund come in, right? That's why I love the idea to help social enterprise to survive. Survive to what? To thrive, to even do something, because they're the one who can actually create change and create it sustainably. So that's the whole idea, to help people do good and do it well. So
Wow.
thank you, Melvyn, for bringing that up.
Thank you, thank you. We started with this idea. We went to Veronica and say, okay, TBN will put in 50,000, and she said YCAB will put in 100,000, and we are so floored by that. Thank you. We really want to partner and see how we can deal with Indonesia together. Now, so sorry. Now for Jane. Jane, perhaps you can walk us through, because what Sunway University and the education group has done in terms of iLabs equipping is like our SEF program, social entrepreneurship training hub. But I think, of course, your scale is much higher and much more innovative. Walk us through that, because that's one, I think, one of the parts that I really appreciate what the Sunway Group is doing. Jane?
Okay. Hang on. Sorry. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the question, Melvyn. Well, iLabs was a very natural extension for the academic side, Sunway University, because we also realized that not everyone is academically inclined. And there are a lot of skills out there, and there are a lot of innovative and entrepreneurial minds out there, and even among the marginalized groups. So this iLabs was conceived, and is a brilliant idea by our education group, and of course, fully championed by our chairman, who had the vision that to create a sustainable, what we call an innovation hub here in Sunway City. So what we try to do is, it's a full works. It's an incubator, it's an accelerator, it provides mentorships. This whole Sunway City is like a living laboratory for incubation and ideation as well. And who knows, one fine day, one of the biggest unicorns might come out of Malaysia and out of Sunway City Innovation Hub. All right, so this is an idea of how, that's Matt, our Chief Innovation Officer for the Sunway Group, and leading a class. And we just, very practical things that we do, because when we draw on the education arm, the university, we draw on the ecosystem, the actual life situations that we have, whether it's property development, hospitality, leisure, construction, healthcare, building materials, and so on and so forth, the malls management. We have all these territories, if I can say the word, for the would-be entrepreneur to test his ideas. So we also have a venture fund as well to complement all these setups. So it's a complete ecosystem that we have here in Sunway City. This is an example of some of the pictures that happens, and we worked with, say, if you see on the right side is the Selangor Society, that Selangor Association that furthers the youth in the state of Selangor to break the cycle of idleness and poverty in the state among the youths, because many of the youths who are not academically inclined, they drop out and we don't know what to do. And SAY is an organization that brings the youth back on track, onto something, and give them a purpose in life. And we work very closely with iLabs to further this. So a lot of pictures, a lot of programs are happening. Closely on what COVID has done, a lot of small businesses were affected. And iLabs recently cooperated with a few big companies and organizations like Alibaba Get program to run a Jumpstart program as well. This Jumpstart was a 4-week program to teach small businesses, including 1 or 2, I think SEs participated as well, on how to reframe, how to use technology now to pivot into different ideas, into different things. So what we can do is provide the ecosystem here within Sunway City to help all these organizations, these entrepreneurial ideas to thrive. So that's where we're coming from. And of course, linked to this, is the impact and the social. some of you might know at Sunway University, there is the UNOS Social Business Center. It's a collaboration with the joint venture with the UNOS Center, with Sunway Education Group, and strictly social business, using social business to eradicate poverty. And I think it goes without saying the reputation of Muhammad Yunus on this. And so what we were trying to do is we provide a platform so that people can come and learn. And we provide the mentorship. Because I think one of the things is like, people might not know where to go for help. And here we are raising our hands and welcoming them to come and help. Because that's our chairman signing the deal that we closed to open the center with Muhammad Yunus. And we are a center to provide and champion the road to eradicating poverty through education, because we want to leverage on our strength of our education arm, our faculty, our facilities, our teaching curriculum. And I like what Dato Kim said about education. It's not just teaching, it has to be quality education. So we want to work with the best, and we work with the best, and we engage with some of the best faculties to bring into the Sunway Education Group to teach and to research. This is a photograph of some ladies. We ran, the Yunus Business Center ran a social kitchen. This is very interesting, life skills workshop for women. And it was so well participated, it's in demand. There will be another one coming up. B40 women, B40 are the bottom 40 of the economic chain in Malaysian social structure that they use for planning purposes. So, and these ladies have gone out very inspired, and it helps them to perhaps make their cakes taste better, how to save on their ingredients and things like this, how to save on energy when they're cooking and things like that. It was very interesting. I witnessed some of it and I tasted the food. It was very good. So we're going to have more of this social kitchen coming up, and this is the kind of things we help. A lot of these ladies are not, in fact, during the MCO period, this was very interesting. This happened just before the MCO, what we call the movement control order in Malaysia. And with their skills, they could then bake, they could make cookies, they could make cakes, they could have it sent and still have some income. So coming back, Jeffrey Cheah Foundation, Sunway University, Sunway Conglomerate, we try to synergistically help our community through especially now this current period that is really unprecedented for a lot of us. And digital and high tech is also very important. iLabs will share a lot more on that next time. I think in a few days' time, Tilla from iLabs will be speaking as well, and he will share with you how we move forward and provide the platform to help people, to support people, the social enterprises.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Jane. In fact, one of the things that we did talk about and explore is how iLabs and perhaps our SEF program can partner together for a SEF in Malaysia as well, because many social enterprises needs to be helped. All right, so we actually are kind of like running out of time. There are questions that are being asked, okay? Now, these questions, unless it's directed to specific panelists, perhaps one or two of you may just want to take this up, right? Now, this is a general question, which is actually one of my questions. I thought it would be good, you know, we use this Q&A. So we'll take a few questions during Q&A, and then after that, I will hand the time over to Wayne, who is our IC, because we're going to have what we call Zoom meetings, right? But the whole thing should end by 7 o'clock Malaysian time, Singapore time, and then 6 o'clock Indonesian time, and 12 noon for lunch for Europe time, okay? Now the question is this: with the current COVID-19 situation still lingering with uncertainty, what changes do you expect to see coming for social enterprises? Okay, and seeking new ways of innovation or funding support if they are to stay sustainable. There's that's a $64 million question, right? That we are seeking to answer. So perhaps I'd like to listen for some of you. Maybe Veronica, you can.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were
take it
doing
out.
this in the breakup
No,
breakup room.
breakup, they will ask you, these are general questions.
Oh, general.
The breakup one
Mm.
will be one where they ask you specifically. In other words,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you
it's
repeat
more
that again?
audio.
Then? What's
Okay.
the during COVID? Is it how?
All right, yeah. How do you expect these changes to impact the social enterprises, and what are some new ways of innovation or funding support they can get to be sustainable?
Whew. Yeah, I
Tough
think
question.
social enterprise are usually Indonesian size by size. There's no like big one that can survive, have a long runway. I guess that's just my point. The social enterprise that we are investing in, the investees, the runways, yeah, definitely between, I don't know, maybe some 3 months, only 6, maybe the best would be 10 months. So very short runway. And I guess globally, 70% of company, what I heard, actually have a very short runway without any income. So I guess what social enterprise faces is actually the same what any corporation is facing at this point. But them being a social impact, it's harder because those who serve the poor actually have a lot more demand to give better service, yet they are still struggling with business. So it's just really difficult because if other businesses, they invest in a non bottom of the pyramid services, maybe there's a different kind of picture. But we're looking at social enterprise in itself, they're not strong enough. So with COVID and the funding, definitely you have to come up with a more graceful kind of funding, a patient, more capital, and maybe restructuring all this loan or you know, equity like kind of investment to be longer, and we have to go softer on them. Yeah. But that kind of impacts the entire portfolio that we're working on. So they have problem, we have problem. So I don't know yet. 3 months into COVID, and we're still trying to survive. I guess as a company ourselves, we haven't even going, you know, to we're not even there to discuss with our investees. So that's just reality from YCAB is dealing with. But I guess we all get it, that we just have to be more graceful and more patient at this point of time. Yeah. Thank you.
What about Kim? Do you offer any any thoughts about that?
You know, to the question of what I see coming out, I think obviously we'll see a lot of failure, sadly. But what I would like to see is, I would like to see probably more of these smaller entities coming together to make themselves easier for funds like ours to fund. Because we take a more kind of disciplined approach. We try and work out with these businesses how much money they need to get to profitability, how long it's going to take, and then we reserve that. So if they're going to need $1 million, we will reserve that and follow on with several rounds of financing, hopefully at least 2-3 rounds. And then at the 3rd round, we then bring other investors in. So we always hold that in reserve. So for our own portfolio companies, we've got reserves to, you know, help them through this. Although at the very beginning, we already have given them a long runway. We make sure that they have that kind of runway. But unfortunately, some of them are coming up to the next funding round over the next. So they are going to need some kind of bridge funding, bridge loan. So I've just been so busy the last few weeks, one, helping our existing businesses survive, Our personal view is that we need to prepare them to survive for at least 2 years. Coming from the scientific side of things, we're not going to discover a vaccine in a few months.
Wow.
Long process. So we have to plan. So we're helping our businesses to plan for at least 2 years. And then also helping them now to say, what kind of bridge funding they need. I think Veronica is right. We are having to be looking for softer loan facilities, defer our loans, repayments if there are loans, and basically helping the company. So I think out of this, sadly, there will be a lot of casualties, but I hope that some of them will merge together and form larger entities that can take on more capital to grow and survive. And I think our own experience is that most businesses fail because they are undercapitalized and are too small. And we need to get these businesses to a kind of scale that they can scale up so that it makes it easier for us to fund, and we can then see a path to profitability.
Okay. That's tough. I don't know, Jane, is there something that Jeffrey Cheah Foundation is planning to do?
Not directly, but I just want to add to what Veronica and Dato Kim has mentioned. What is in the social enterprise sphere is neither a full charity nor is it a full-blown business venture to a lot of people to probably. And therefore, funding becomes a tricky thing to analyze, to evaluate for funding as well. At least in the Malaysian context. Even the accounts, how do you do the books for a social enterprise and so on and so forth? It's still up for debate. And then there is the argument between the social impact and the economic impact, okay? My view is that the social impact and the social issues are caused because the economic side of things is not taken care of. Yeah, so if these people, if the marginalized and say, for instance, the disabled are able to sustain it will then reduce the pressure on the social welfare system on the country. So in that context, I would like to see that a social enterprise be fairly evaluated and assessed for funding purposes, because the social impact the social value that they bring in, how do you put an amount of money into that? Yeah. Yes, you can have ROIs, but I would say this is a return on value, I would say, that we need to look at. The children going on to university, the children going on to start a business. So how do we join it all together? Are we talking about the government stepping in, the Ministry of Education stepping in, the Ministry of Welfare stepping in, the Ministry of Women and Children and Welfare stepping in? So we have to look at it in entirety. But thankfully, in Malaysia, we do have the Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development that is looking into it now together with MAGIC and a few more other organizations to help make some sense out of this. Yeah. That's where we are right now in Malaysia.
Yeah, in fact, we are in active discussions with them. So that's a good part of it. So this question actually came from Teresa. I want to acknowledge her. Okay, we probably have time for one more question before we go into our Zoom rooms, because they ask questions specific to the individual, all right? This is asked by Annabelle. It is often said that social enterprises can never be VC backed, venture capital backed, all right? Mainly because profit margins are very narrow and cannot be scaled. What has to change within the social enterprise to enable scalability and profitability? I think that's a question that every impact investment fund manager would think about. So over to you, perhaps Kim and Veronica.
I think Dr. Kim will have a great insights because his is actually scalable, difference with mine at this point portfolio.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is the challenge, and the reality is some enterprises just can't be scaled, and just got to accept that. But those that can create loads and loads of jobs. We employ thousands of people through all the various entities. So you just got to be real about what can be scaled and what can't. And then those that can be scaled, we need to look at how we really fully fund them. The worst thing I think that we've done with the social enterprises is sometimes to set people up for failure. We encourage them to start. We give them a small amount of money. We give them $500, $1,000. Or they win a prize for $5,000 and they get started. But unfortunately, there's no follow on. You need a second round, a third round, a Series A, a Series B, a Series C to get them to become profitable. So you got to give them enough fuel in the tank to be able to lift off. And there is no shortcut to that. It's down to the business plan. It's down to finding VC groups, and we are an example of VC groups who fund people from piece of paper. When we funded Bridge Schools, it was just a piece of paper. It was just concept. It was just the right thing for us to get behind them. But we knew that they were going to need a lot of capital. It wasn't just $50,000 here. Our last round of funding for Bridge was $40 million to get the scale. So we take a more disciplined approach, and I want to say to the person asking the question, there are these kinds of funds around. You just got to find them, and you got to come with a plan that shows them the path to profitability, to scalability. You're right. The VC funds in this sector are not your typical VC funds. In the biotech sector, we don't get out of bed if we don't see a 50x return, right? But in this sector, we have social venture capital guys who realize that this is not about making money. We have to be profitable because otherwise we just become a charity. We have to be profitable so that we can grow and expand. But the profit margins are low. And the only way to make it profitable, therefore, is to scale. So it's not running one coffee shop, it's running a chain of coffee shops to become profitable. If you just run one coffee shop, if you just run one kitchen or whatever, you can never get to scale. So we're looking for real entrepreneurs who have the vision, who have the capacity to take on real capital to be able to scale their businesses. And if we find them, we will reserve money and follow them several rounds to get them to scale.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, before I get all of us into our respective Zoom meetings, it's so important, I think, what our panelists and Dr. Kim Tan has mentioned. You need capital. You need to deal with both the social and the financial KPIs. I think that's what TBN is all about. All right. The question is, which one leads? I think the social KPI has to lead, but yet you have a financial KPI to keep you on track. Otherwise, if you don't make money, you can't help other people. So herein brings together all the gifts, people with the time, talent, and treasure to bring that about. And I mean, there are investment bankers, okay? There are consultants who wants to do something for good. And that's where we bring that into being and help the social enterprise. And hence where the education of the social entrepreneur comes into part is that they are filled with great passion but they need to be helped in these areas as well. There are those who have dreams, but they don't know how to outwork it. Now, maybe they have potential, but we also need to help them, because social enterprises are the multipliers. If they do it well, they actually scale in the sense of not just the businesses, but the people that they impact, the lives, the families, communities that they impact. So that's the important thing. So what we're trying to do is that there's this whole category called social impact investment funds, all right? Then there is what we are doing, which is basically the resilience program. Okay, the resilience program deals with bringing together some parts of it for helping those struggling in COVID-19 pandemic situation. But yet, maybe if you help them with cash flow at this certain time, they have the ability to move on, because if they die now, that's it. So join us together in that. I want to remind you again, either to sign up, because the conference actually continues on this coming Tuesday to Saturday, or you can actually donate and say, I want to play a part in it. All right. Now, before I hand the time over to Wayne, I'd like for us to maybe spend about a minute or two going through a what we call a poll. Is it helpful? Is this particular session helpful? Because this is basically a kickoff session that, you know, we've got close to 300 people logging in. And that would be very helpful if you also can say that, hey, I think I learned something from this. I'm going to get my network, my friends to be involved with what is coming, because what is coming is the other details. The social enterprises will be sharing, okay? The like what Jane said, iLabs, they will be sharing in detail. Okay, so this is basically a kickoff session for us to say, okay, this is what the TBN conference is all about. All right, so if you can flash the poll, can everybody get involved in a poll? And then also remember that this early bird registration fee continues on until tonight, 11:30, okay, 11:30. And that basically costs you, I think, 60 Singapore dollars. Okay, I think for students, we have a students discount as well, 60. But this is contribution. This is not signing up for the conference, all right? It's contribution to the resilience program. All right, can we put in the poll? And once again, thank you so much. I think almost 300 people log in. I just want to thank you for logging in wherever you are. And please continue to journey with us in the next week or so. Wayne, over to you.
Hello again. I hope everyone has enjoyed the session. If you haven't filled up the poll, take a minute or two to do that. But we would also like to take this opportunity to highlight and to thank our generous sponsors, without which this event really wouldn't have been possible. So once again, thank you so much to our sponsors and our partners and our supporters. Now, just a few things before we close out. Firstly, because of the Hari Raya or Idul Fitri break, our next session will only resume next Tuesday. So you would have noticed that most of our sessions are deliberately scheduled at breakfast, lunch, or pre-dinner timing. So we don't want to take too much of our time away. Again, we highly encourage you to download the conference app so that you have the schedule ready on hand. You probably already have the details on your emails already, right? Now, back on the conference app a little bit, in case some of you guys missed out what I said just now. Being a virtual conference, we need to provide everyone an avenue to interact in between sessions. And the conference app is actually that avenue that we are providing you. You can find the full conference schedule on the app. You can interact with everyone, learn more about the 70 amazing social enterprises that are exhibiting virtually. So go to Google Play Store or Apple App Store and search for TBN Asia. It's that simple. So make sure you download the conference app. All right, on to the next session. As I mentioned just now, you are in for a treat for the next session because we have a star-studded panel, right? Where we have representatives of people from the people sector, the private sector, and the public sector. So we call it a 3P panel. So you definitely don't want to miss this. If you haven't bought your tickets already, make sure you do so immediately. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, this was the panel that I mentioned, the big picture panel. Make sure you're there. So if you definitely don't want to miss this, if you haven't bought your tickets already, make sure you do so immediately. Speaking of tickets, our early bird pricing closes tonight at 11:30 p.m. Okay, help us spread the word for the conference. I'm sure you wouldn't want your friends to miss out on this discounted pricing. Do remember, all ticket sales goes to supporting our resilience program. However, if you feel compelled to support us over and beyond just ticket sales, you can also do a one-time donation. You may contact any of the TBN Asia team or use the link in the QR code that you're seeing on the screen. So I'll give you a couple of moments in case you want to scan the QR code. All right, last but not least, like all conferences, usually we have people queuing up to want to talk to the speakers, right? We were thinking very hard in terms of how we can do this, and we said, hey, let's have individual breakout Zoom rooms whereby we can allow you to have a one-on-one, or maybe not one-on-one, depending on the queue. At least you get to speak to the individual speakers. So if you take a look at the chat panel, which you should be able to see right now, probably on your right of the screen, you will see individual Zoom links to each of these speakers. In other words, each of these speakers, our panelists today, will be in one of these Zoom rooms. You click on one of these links to join in those rooms, okay? And you are always free to jump out and jump to another room. If let's say you just feel that you also want to talk to more than one panelist. All right, that's it from us. Do stay back for virtual networking, and we hope to see you again next Tuesday. Have a great evening and Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri. Thank you.